All right, so welcome into the live stream today. We're going to be breaking down the metaverse in a deep way as well, talking about a lot of news, but also looking at some of the projects that have been pumping. And I know you guys are probably out there just ringing bells of joy. And we're going to try to get into some of that. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Let's get into it. The metaverse, of course, has been one of those topics of discussion that is, will metaverse break away from traditional cryptocurrencies? Will it get its chance to really become its own entity for Web3? We're going to try to break this down across a lot of news. We'll also reveal to you some of the data that we're always tracking here on our Crypto Power Index that will showcase a lot of the trending tokens, a lot of where things were going, and we'll show you some stuff that, last week's data that we revealed, what that looked like, kind of our own scorecard of how did we do. Before we get to it, let's get going here on this first one. Of course, Samsung availing their new metaverse world, My House. It's going to attract 4 million visits in less than 1 month. This will be a good one. Again, when you look at projects and also major players like Samsung doing these kinds of releases, this is where it gets very interesting because it starts to create a little bit of not only reality, but use case scenarios within something that a lot of people are utilizing in terms of smart TVs. So smart TV adoption has started to move and accelerate in a big way, double digits last year alone, and we continue to see that ramp. And I think we'll see even more and more integrations into what we'll see in the metaverse through some of the smart TVs and, of course, the devices on all of this. So here you've got, after Samsung's official release, its own metaverse service, My House, on Jan 6th, the company has also exemplified huge success on the platform, attracting 4 million visitors. A collaboration with Naver's 3D avatar platform Zepeto, which is My House, was launched at CES 2022. There was quite a bit there, and this is something I think we're going to see more players get into this. So don't put it past all the set-tops boxes and also the new smart TVs that we'll start to see really roll out this year of maybe going in this direction. I'm kind of curious though, with Samsung being such a mobile device, when I say meaning, if you look at the Galaxy series and what they've been able to do to really compete with the iPhone, I mean, today it's really kind of, the Galaxy and the iPhone, that's kind of the two options that you've got. I'm kind of curious, do you think, could Samsung be or make a first move on the metaverse in a mobile application that may rival what we would see Apple do? So that'll be a quick one to watch as well, because I think a lot of this is really kind of going in this direction. Here's another one, and that is Unix Gaming, which is, we've had them on our show before around the gaming guilds. Make sure and check out that video because we get into a lot of the gaming guilds and why they're important. We did this several months ago, breaking down Yield Guild Games, Unix, and a handful of others that really kind of break out what they do, why they do it, and how it's going to affect the gaming sector. But they are partnering with Sandbox on this partnership, and I think this is a good play for both companies, both projects. One of the world's leading play-to-earn gaming guilds, Unix, is going to grow even bigger after cementing a key alliance with Sandbox. And just, some of you may not understand that. Let me kind of explain what the guilds do. They're not necessarily, they are tokens in many cases, whether it's Yield, Guild Games, YGG, or Unix. The key is they're putting together rosters of players and or organizations to where they go in, utilize capital to either acquire assets, NFTs, or gaming consortiums that can play the game for money. So that's kind of the concept behind what they're looking to do. So we will see more and more of these, and I think we're going to see some in a big way this year, especially with gaming starting to break out. I'd love to find out what what guild you think is going to be the one to watch. There's a ton that really play heavy into Sandbox, but also into Axie Infinity, and even some moving quite a bit into some of the new projects out there that are really starting to potentially break loose, things like Illuvium, Star Atlas, all those kind of things. So I'm just kind of curious which ones you think will be the ones it is going to play with. This is back to the story. Unix believes it can play a key role in the development of Sandbox, and that one is kind of interesting. I wanted to highlight that for you. in the development of the Sandbox Metaverse as a kind of ecosystem builder. That is interesting because that's kind of already what it is. It sees itself as helping prominent brands and individuals create their own virtual worlds and populate them with buildings, digitals, etc. So I think the bigger thing here for Unix is probably going to be the aspect of bringing a lot more awareness to Sandbox, even more so than what we're seeing here, but more importantly, around the gaming side of things, because they can bring fleets of gamers in, also help with onboarding people. All of that is a good thing in the right direction. This is the other thing that Sandbox is doing, of course, and that is partnering with Warner Music. And this one is a group to create a music-themed world in the metaverse. I think this is actually going to be bigger than the land sale that we saw around Snoop Dogg and his estate. This one, I think, could be probably the biggest land sale and definitely biggest potential marketing opportunity for Sandbox all year long. Pending, of course, they could do some really interesting deals later in the year, I'm sure, but this is a big one right here. But anyway, partnering up with Warner Music Group, we've reported on this before, and I think there are some elements here. This was a nice quote from them. Partnership with Sandbox add a new layer of possibility in the metaverse with the ownership of virtual real estate. First mover Warner Music has secured the equivalent of beachfront property in the metaverse on the land, and they're going to develop, of course, persistent immersive social experiences, music, obviously, and I think this is important for all things when you think about music and entertainment, because in a lot of cases, when you think about music in a 2D world, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it might be, there isn't really that 3D experience yet, and we have not seen that immersive experience like what you can see in, even if you just see live streams of concerts, those seem to be a little bit more immersive than what you might find on the 2D side of just listening to music and being able to thumb around. I think this could be a big play for music and definitely a big play for artists in the future. So one to watch for sure. The rise of Web3, metaverse tokens surge. Obviously, we know that as Meta's share price plunges. Now, let's just understand something, because we're gonna hit on Facebook in a big way, because it is an interesting thing and phenomenon to watch. If you understand what Facebook and Meta is doing, eventually we're going to stop calling them Facebook, but the point is that last October they decided to do their name change. And really, with what Zuckerberg's strategy was, and I think they had been really building up on this for quite some time. If you look back at their acquisition history on Wikipedia, you can kind of see the writing was on the wall. They were starting to acquire the right kind of companies, acquire the right type of talent, and they were trying to bring in talent from a lot of places. And of course, just because they have such a trove of cash, they can pay. And the scenario really boiled down to, could they be able to release the gates of the closed gardens and move into a decentralized universe? That's really the big question for Meta. And I think the direction so far in the short term, because we haven't heard anything really come out of Facebook in a long time that really kind of leans into that, meaning leaning into a decentralized metaverse, I think that could be the problem here. And that is why I think we're facing a big issue with their shares plunging. And if you look at just a little bit here, and I just want to go to no thanks there, but I want to look at this headline right here. Meta's vision for the metaverse is an old idea that's never worked, according to a tech CEO. And this is something that we've talked about before here on the show quite a bit, is whether or not the model of closed gardens could even begin to work in a metaverse environment. Now, granted, I feel like there are some projects out there that are starting to kind of go down that direction. I do feel like, though, the community of most of these metaverse projects will reel those back in and get back to a community and or decentralized scenario. And I think that's the thing that Meta is facing when you look at the whole flow of what they're trying to do as a tech company. This was Phil Libin, who is the former boss of Evernote and is now the CEO of video conference company. Meh. I don't know about this guy. I mean, he's a Silicon Valley guy, but I think that many of them are faced with the same kind of situation right now, and that is, how do they address the accelerated speed of metaverse companies, projects, and blockchain projects at what they're dealing with right now? Because I think for the first time, Silicon Valley may have met its match in the sense of the decentralized development world. And there's something to that. I'll get into what I mean behind that. Before we go further, I want to jump into our poll here because we've got a lot of questions coming in today and, of course, some polls. All right, so where does the future of Metaverse lie? Facebook, Meta, and, of course, crypto and gaming, 90%. Duh. That was a good one. Man, some of my poll masters over there, they just come up with these brilliant questions. I love them. Anyway, I get what you're saying. It's you guys are on it. Of course, definitely moving heavy into the metaverse and gaming sector, I think, is going to be the key. The thing I'm curious about is to what layers of these projects could become siloed. We won't call them closed, but siloed. Let's just take something like a Sandbox, or even an Axie for that matter, maybe an Illuvium. If you think about the holy trinity of the metaverse, what do those look like if they start to venture outside, or if they start to close off those communities and or start to try to put the stranglehold? Remember, Facebook was like this in the beginning. They were very open to a certain extent. Sure, it was a closed item ecosystem, but there was a lot of forgiveness in the essence of building fan pages, whether you were a business or an individual. And then slowly and slowly, they were like, all right, if you want to reach your actual fans that you've already spent a whole lot of money trying to create, now you got to pay to reach your only fans that you've done and you've built on your own. So it's kind of a scenario I think a lot of people will probably ask to your own self, and that is around these metaverse projects. Could be any of the current projects out there right now start to go down that track. Hopefully they're going to learn from Web 2.0 and not deal with it. This was another article that was just really thrashing in. Facebook is the worst performer in the metaverse, says Arjuna Capital's Lamb. And this was a good interview. I'd check it out. Basically what she said was that the likelihood of Facebook being able to handle the evolution of an open system was probably none. And that would be the one thing that Mark Zuckerberg would have to do, is potentially integrate some sort of openness and or decentralization for within the system. The problem is this company has been built on anything but decentralization, and that could be really kind of just a culture battle in its own, throughout its own development cycle of what it could become in the future. In other words, it's likely that that company may never be able to come down. Now, why is it come down into the metaverse? Why is it important that Facebook has done what they've done in the reference of maybe exposing metaverse? The biggest thing that Facebook has done for what's happening right now in the metaverse and all the companies around it is they exposed it. And that is enough to get it going. Now, granted, I think it would have been a better move for Facebook had they not changed their name to Meta, put all this focus on it, been building in the back rooms, trying to create something, and then drop it in and out there in a way in which it would make such an impact that people might actually go out and do it. Now, everybody knows that the 800-pound gorilla is loose in the cage. So everybody's developing according to that. So I just don't know. I'm very interested as to whether or not this is going to be a thing moving forward for Facebook. The other one I want to talk about here is a Blockworks article, Global X latest ETF issuer to test out the metaverse. This is a good point, because this really kind of zones in on an ETF from a metaverse perspective. So a planned ETF joining similar products recently filled by First Trust, ProShares, Fidelity Investments, etc. But the New York-based firm Metaverse ETF will primarily invest in securities of its own Metaverse index, which consists of companies positioned to benefit from the development and commercialization of the Metaverse. And of course, I think this is just a natural thing. The good thing about this one, Global X has about 90 ETFs trading in the US with a combined assets of around 40 billion. This is not a slouch play. This is a real big issue when we see that kind of sideline capital moving into a space and a sector that is so young. And also, think about it, just a handful of companies that have really started to go into the single to $10 billion valuations. These are small, not even unicorns yet. These are small companies that are just starting to really get started. So I think for them to do this with Global X, this says a lot in the space. It definitely says a lot around the faith of where Metaverse can go, but even more so, it says a lot about the potential on the future of what this technology and Web3 could reveal to us, both as users, but also as, if you're in business, as an opportunity. So there's a lot that will be happening. And here's the other thing I tell people all the time. You don't even know what you don't know yet. It's much like what the internet was in the mid-90s, early 2000s. There was not enough understanding around what was being released on the planet, on the globe, that would open your eyes up to the potential of what it could do. And that, I think, is the same scenario we're dealing with Metaverse. Now, I think we are, just as humans, evolved in the sense of understanding that technology has such a Moore's law approach, meaning exponential growth upon exponential growth. The potential here that I think we see in terms of a massive leap is if we get into some sort of quantum computing, something of that nature that would really leapfrog us into an era that could be something way beyond what we will know as the metaverse before we see quantum computing come on. So there's a lot to that point. Back to the issue of value, and this is the other thing that I want to kind of focus in on, is where are these value points being driven? And one of them is Sandbox's land sales. This is the Everdream Soft premium land sale that's coming in on right now, literally this week. Thrilled to announce the partnership, Sandbox and Nebia Studio, of course, on Feb 10th. I think that's actually, it's this Thursday, I thought. So land sale around the Everdream Soft estate. This is going to give you guys a chance to get in on some land on Sandbox. Maybe this is the time that you want to take a look at that, even though Sandbox is flying up, and I think it's 1,011 sand to get into this particular sale. The premium land experiences are high traffic because they're surrounded by top-rated partners and social hubs. Users will be able to buy premium land around Everdream Soft Estate, which is expected to see much more traffic than the regular land sale, and offering other opportunities for the owners. So I think, again, we're going to see a little bit of a pump on Sandbox, and there's a lot more happening in this quarter as well. Let's not leave out Mana, because Decentraland is continuing its manifesto for 2022. I was reading through this. This is the one thing that sticks out to me, and that is right there. A mobile app is in early prototyping stages, so you can keep in touch with Metaverse friends from your mobile device, everything that's happening in the world right at your fingertips. If Mana pulls this off, if Decentraland can pull off a mobile application for Metaverse uses, this would be big. Because we have not seen that really at the level in some of the projects that really kind of led the way out there. So it's very possible that it would be interesting to see how this one would go. But they had a point right here. Research collaboration with experimental VR client and Decentraland protocol has been ongoing for the past few months. They're going to work will begin after the desktop client is released, and then creators can, thank you for bearing with the limits around wearables, 3D models, textures. That's the question I have. Do you think, this might be a poll for us, do you think we'll see more 3D AR approach, or do you think it's going to be the 2D and mobile experience? I feel like it's 2D mobile experience first. Just kind of curious what you guys think about that. Just drop some notes in the chat there. Now, let's get into, and we're going to get into some of the detail on the charts, give you some of the top 10 for this week, as well as take a look at our last week's performance on the CPI. Before we get to that, let's jump over to the poll real quick, so there's some stuff coming in. All right, did you increase your Metaverse holdings during the Bitcoin dip? Yes, all in, 62%. Wait to adding more, and I don't own any, 7%. Wow, okay, so you guys are really into it. I love that, in the sense that you're out there really diving into projects that either one, you understand, you've done a lot of research on. All that's good. And last up here on this Twitter tweet right here, unconfirmed, this is unconfirmed, before I show this to you guys, this is unconfirmed rumor that Facebook is about to acquire Sandbox game. It looks like regulation is coming sooner than later in this space. This was done by NFT Ethics, not necessarily a slouch out there, but not likely that this is accurate. And if you look further on down into the tweet, you can see Yatsui. And Yatsu basically is the Animoca brand's, let's see, what is he? I can't remember his position there. I've seen this guy many times. But anyway, the point being, he's saying, I don't think so. I can confirm that this is not true. Very clear views on keeping the ecosystem open. Key word here, open, especially the Sandbox game. And I think that right there sums up the whole aspect of around what Meta is dealing with right now, and that is closed walled gardens versus an open, decentralized metaverse that will continue to see growth and exponential growth opportunities with situations like this. So definitely not something that I don't think it's going to happen. First of all, I feel like that would be a bad thing for Sandbox in general. Now, could it accelerate them to maybe to a certain level, but long term, I think it's a short-sighted, potential play. Let's get into some of the charts here. I just want to visit Bitcoin. Of course, everybody knows we're trading at 44.2 right now. And this again is some of the things that we continuously put out on the CPI. So you can kind of see our track record right here. We saw this move right here from 62 to 64 to 71. So the track was moving up quickly. We pop these out pretty much daily right now for Bitcoin and Ethereum, but we also have the weekly breakout in the consumer or the crypto power index. I always want to say consumer because the CPI is coming out this week. But also I want to jump over to Axie, which was one of our high flyers this week. And this one right here is kind of over the past few weeks. We had the 72.08, then it rode out to 72.56. Amplification was growing and really went right along with that, a little bit of sideways action, but also a nice little growth right here, which is where we saw this potential move kind of pointing in that direction. Sentiment now holding at 78.61 with an amplification score of 73.08. That's as of this week. So that's your latest score. That's a good thing for Axie. In fact, it being into one of the top 5 there. Sandbox is the other one that we're watching really closely. Same kind of scenario. Really good performance, had the 74, then it dropped up here to 76, so we started to see that movement. Let me kind of zoom in on that one a little bit for you guys here so you can kind of see. And then we pulled this one right here at 77.21, so it's likely what we're going to see a little bit more movement here, especially as sentiment and amplification start to close in on each other. And that's something to explain. In the Crypto Power Index, we track 2 major credentials. One is the overall sentiment on a project. The other is the amplification, because the amplification is very important. If it gets to where it's scoring as high as sentiment or more higher than sentiment, it indicates upside almost 9 times out of 10. It's kind of like when you print a green dot on Market Cipher, if you know what I'm talking about. You've seen some of our shows on the TA analysis that we do with Evan. The green dot is kind of the idea that what happens when amplification is actually overperforming where sentiment is. That in itself starts to point in the right direction and a lot of good stuff. Just to give you guys an example of last week, let me jump over to the chart real quick. I want to show this real fast. All right, so this was our, that was our top 20 last week. So Sandbox, of course, Remark coming in there, UFO, Illuvium, Vulcan Forge, Mobox, Mana, Network, Eternity. All of this was happening when we were tracking this. Again, you're seeing these 75s a lot here in this range, and that usually indicates good movement. And then again, right here's our second of our top 20 last week, Merit, Alice, Starlink, Render, Red Fox, Atlas. Notice what we said there with Red Fox on the performance last week was performing higher on amplification at 74.02. Same thing with Atlas. Axie was performing well. And then you've got Wilder, Yield Guild Games, and Aurora. I just want to give you guys an example of some things that we pulled in this week. And that is right here. Let's take a look at Red Fox. This is the 7-day on Red Fox. So literally last week, had you been tracking on the CPI, this is the kind of growth numbers that we were anticipating. Now, were we anticipating that kind of ramp up? Not necessarily, but we do see those kinds of things that start to showcase, especially with Red Fox. This was one that we really isolated out, so it was a big winner. Another one was right here, was My Neighbor Alice, again, also on the 7-day. Again, back here trading at around 690 on the 7-day, and of course now there you've got it right here as it starts to perform at almost $10. So this is going to be a hot one we continue to see that one. The same thing with Yield Guild Games. On the 7-day, it was really right down here in the dumps, right here at $3 and trading nicely right now at $4. So a good one. Another one that performed well in the CPI was Remark. Again, the 7-day holding in here at 1681, currently trading right at 2187. And then UFO was one that we were really hot on last week. And again, that one on the 7-day, right there, right before the pop on 131. And then we've seen that, of course, move to some pretty significant gains on that one. Illuvium, a little bit less because we saw a little bit of movement here and then a little bit of a dip right here, which really opened up an opportunity with Illuvium to get it under $600, and then boom, it just rockets right back up to 716. So Illuvium definitely one that we're watching closely. Vulcan Forge was one of the big ones, and this again was on the 7-day back here on the 31st at 43, and of course now right here trading currently at the 438, trading at now at 1588. So not bad. So as we get into these, and just so you guys are aware, we do that chart. You'll get this one right here. Now this is a little different because this is for our show, but you'll get these top 20 that we do on the Crypto Power Index, and that's what we're doing each Monday. We start dropping those charts. You'll see those, and we'll start showcasing them throughout the week. But to get early access on those, you definitely want to join in on the CPI so you can get to these things. This will give you the altcoin index, which is the top 20. We do the gaming, we do Metaverse. We are also getting ready to release the DeFi part. We are working on the low cap gaming also, so that's going to start to identify. We do the trending projects, and then we do the overall categories on Metaverse, Bitcoin, Ethereum, DeFi, and altcoins, and those we compare against each other. So that's kind of how we build into each one of those. Let's go into some of the questions because I know there's a lot here to try to get to and talk about some of these. Grist, Render is the play. I like Render too. It's one that I've been holding for quite some time. Probably should have sold it when it went high, and but decided to kind of hang on there. I just feel like when you think Metaverse, we are going to see more companies moving in that direction, so I like you. All right, B. Wilson, when you and your crew have time, I'd love to see analysis on nodes as a service. Likes that, okay. Strong Thor, especially sentiment portion, would be very interesting. This is one that we have not done before, at least on any in-depth research. Probably not a bad idea. Let me look at the trending data on YouTube to see if it's interesting enough for enough people, because obviously we want to spend our time on projects that help the most amount of people out there that are interested in that. So if you like that, drop us some comments. Maybe that'll help with us understanding. Gala, strongest gaming platform in the space. Yeah, crypto gamer, for sure. Gala continues to perform. It had a little bit of a struggle, and then of course it's been coming roaring back. 2D and mobile experiences for now. Thank you very much on that, Dan. Like that. Flow is solid. Like that one too. Flow actually, sneak peek. Flow made our top 20 this week. Big move by them. Max T, Metaverse projects, gaming or infrastructure, where do you see success? Listen, I think in the Metaverse, you have to treat it the same way you do with traditional cryptocurrency, is spread your, I won't call it your risk, but yeah, spread your risk around a little bit. I'd stay in gaming. I'd go after and I've talked about this many times before, I'd go after mid-range gaming, which is usually not as risky. Go after, obviously, the high-profile tokens, and then you have to add a little risk to it. The tolerance is based on you, but I would look at everything from infrastructure to early stage, and I'd also look at DeFi. DeFi is going to be a player, I think, in Metaverse. There are a handful of players that are starting to show up in Metaverse in terms of what their structure is. So just kind of sprinkle it around like that. We probably should do our high risk and our medium risk portfolios again, because updating those might be good for 2022. Love to hear if you guys would like to see that. Just remember, these are market movers. Market movers are real simple. We're going to give you this kind of data, lots of research and insights, but it really is up to you guys to go out there and do your own research and dig in deep on the Metaverse and find out what you like, because there's probably some things that you're really interested in that are in a case of where a metaverse application could be. It might work right within something that's in your wheelhouse. All right, let's go with Kareen. Omi, definitely a good one. Ecomi is a project we like. What's up with GameStarter? We're going to have GameStarter on the show here this week. They've got a couple of new projects that are coming out that we're going to be talking about. So be looking for that one. Scene Shetty, yeah, of course, we've got Zilla Metopolis. We just had that video. Check that one out. Let's go with Max T. Metaverse projects, gaming or infrastructure. I think we already saw that one. We do not want centralized metaverse. Hasn't Mark watched Ready Player One? Yeah, I know what you mean, man. It's sometimes though that those people, I shouldn't say those people, but sometimes when you are in those kinds of situations, bubbles, so to speak, you kind of there's a lot of yes men for that guy. It will take some people to really break rank to try to get them going in the right direction. The question is going to be, is it too late? I just don't know. All right, so Jeff, I believe this is a FOMO pump and we might see another correction in March when interest rates change. I don't think we are free and clear. Yes, I agree with you. I do not think we are free and clear. What I always recommend though is this is what I do. You kind of do it yourself. But what I will look for is for these kinds of moves and those dips, because those dips is when we were buying. This 2 weeks ago, everybody could have been buying these dips and sitting in a really good position right now. It's what we have been leaning in on, and we continue to lean on. As anytime we see metaverses, especially in these projects that we like, anytime we see a Sandbox or an Axie, an Illuvium, any of those kinds of dips, we go after them because it is something that we're very convicted about around what its potential can be. Now, will Bitcoin and Ethereum continue to see a little bit of a rise? According to our TA analysis that we did this morning with Evan, there is some very interesting things happening up through May is what we're looking at. May could be a new all-time high for that, which will bring a lot of the metaverse projects out with it. So don't get caught. Terry Ball, if there was a good GTA metaverse, all things on the maps, earning potential, what would take over? Not sure I understand that question. All maps and earning potential. Maybe it's on, maybe he's talking about, maybe real estate? I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Illuvium looks amazing. Great. Gala, self-contained. Yes. Sandbox to the moon. Love it. Best metaverse buy token right now. What would that be? I'd still put my money on Axie. Just right now, just because of what they've done and what they're in the process of doing with their whole ecosystem and their economy. If they get that right, and if they accelerate, Sky Mavis is just in the right place at the right time. It may not be the best project out there, but timing is sometimes very important in these markets, and you never know. Things like that can happen, so be on the lookout for that one. We got to cover Ultra OS. Did you know we had Ultra on the show with their CEO, their co-CEOs on the show? You should check out that video because they really go into a lot of detail on what that would be. We should look at it once again. War is going to make a comeback. I like that one from Major Snuffy. Good. Still feel like UFO smells like a scam. I hope I'm wrong, JCH. All right, listen, UFO is one of those projects that has just been in and out of, I think, where a lot of people have been looking at new projects like that and have seen similars. And sometimes because you have similarities within other projects that have not been, say, up and up, then a lot of times you kind of fall into that category without any due, but you have to kind of break rank and do some things. So I think for UFO, they just have to prove their case. If they continue to, perform and hit their roadmaps, do those kind of things, any project out there can start to really come off. So don't be afraid of those too much. What do you think of Hedera? This is a big one. The Ubisoft partnership, I think, is one that, and we talked to Mance about that in essence of what that could mean. And it is something that Hedera does a really good job with, and that is these big, overarching sponsors and partners. They are really go look at their list of the companies they're involved with. I mean, it's like IBM, Google, you name it, and they have definitely got it in the game. Justin Lewin, thoughts on Ronin? It's the blockchain that Sky Mavis used to build Axie Infinity. Yes, that is correct. Ronin, the Ron token, is one that we think is definitely on the hunt. And I think the key here is as things start to smooth out with Smooth Love Potion, get it? I think things will start to shift a little bit for Ron token, but more importantly for Axie in general. I think Axie is going to continue to see some moves here. Here's my prediction is that if we do see a correction, I don't know that Axie, based on the moves they're making right now, sees a correction with it. Let's wait and see. So, because we saw this big correction, seeing Axie under $50 for the first time in a long time. And a lot of that was because timing. Back to my point. The Bitcoin market was going down. Axie was struggling with their economy. Their system and player uptake was lower. And now we see a little bit of a light for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Axie has addressed their economy. They're addressing their Smooth Love Potion problem, and they've launched Ron. Timing starts to really align with the stars, so be watching out on all those. All right, you guys have been great today. Always love having you guys on the live stream because I think the questions are really fantastic. And the cool thing is that you understand what's going on. But if you're new and you don't understand what's going on, what I would ask for you to do is jump back into our stream, a few videos, start to look at some of our lives, kind of bring yourself up to speed and get to the point where you understand what we're talking about, especially in the gaming and metaverse categories, because those are the ones that most likely are going to get you the most gains this year. The others are, of course, these great projects in blockchain. You can get all of those. We've got, 500-600 videos on here, all built around that. If you're listening in over on the podcast, thank you so much for the kudos over there. We'd love it. Make sure and give us some more stars over there on iTunes and on Spotify. But best of all, jump right over here to the YouTube channel. It's where it all happens. We get you the charts, the analysis, the CPI. All of it comes together right here on the show itself. If you want to reach me, it's out on Twitter. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.